What is the real price of silence? Not the kind that brings calm, but the kind that hides deep scars, shields painful truths, and slowly erodes families from the inside out. Today I invite you to explore a story that transcends ancient scripture and exposes a heart-wrenching reality. Even the most admired leaders can falter as fathers. This is the story of King David, a legendary figure known for his compassion, his psalms, and his unmatched wisdom, yet ultimately flawed in his ability to protect those he loved most. Picture a young princess, pure-hearted and gentle, making her way through the palace corridors toward her half-brother's room. She is unaware that her life is about to take a tragic turn, plunging her into an unimaginable nightmare. Yet, perhaps even more shocking than the event itself was the silence that followed, the silence of the one person who should have defended her. To truly grasp the depth of this tragedy, we must travel back to ancient Jerusalem, to the royal palace where David resided, the greatest king Israel had ever known. He was a ruler who expanded his territories, conquered giants, and wrote psalms that continue to resonate with us today. But this is not a story of triumphs. It is a story of his most profound failure as a father. It is a story of power, betrayal, and the silence that inflicted more harm than any sword. Today, let us delve into the events that shattered David's family and uncover 3 crucial lessons that every parent must learn to prevent such a disaster from happening again. David's kingdom was impressive, his military conquests expanding Israel's borders far and wide. His name became synonymous with wisdom and justice. However, behind the palace walls, a complicated and fragile family dynamic was brewing. David had many wives and concubines, resulting in a large family with numerous sons and daughters, each with different mothers. Such a situation, common for monarchs of that era, was bound to create tensions and rivalries. Among his sons was Amnon, David's firstborn, who held a special place as heir to the throne. Then there was Absalom, known for his charm and beauty, and his sister Tamar, a princess whose life would soon be shattered by a series of preventable events. What makes this story relevant for us today isn't just the shocking nature of the events that unfolded, but the timeless lessons about family and leadership it offers. When we examine the events that led to Tamar's tragic fate, we notice troubling patterns that continue to haunt families today. How could a leader so insightful in statecraft be so blind to the dangerous dynamics within his own household? How could a father, renowned for his sensitivity in writing psalms, remain mute in the face of his daughter's suffering? And most importantly, what can we learn from these failures to protect our own families? Let's unravel the chain of events that destroyed David's family peace, while also highlighting 3 key signs that every parent should be aware of to avoid a similar catastrophe. Because while the times have changed, the family dynamics that lead to disaster have not. This is a story of power, betrayal, and consequences, but above all, it is a warning about how the silence of those who should protect can be more devastating than any act of violence. David's rise to power, as recorded in 2 Samuel 3, was marked by victories and an expanding family. In Hebron, he fathered 6 sons with different women, and later in Jerusalem, his family continued to grow. The royal palace, with its grand stone halls, was filled with brothers and half-brothers, each bearing not only the weight of being the king's son, but also the ambitions and expectations of their respective mothers. Among David's children, we find Amnon, who became infatuated with his half-sister Tamar. The scriptures describe her as beautiful, and Amnon's obsession with her grew until it made him physically ill. This was not love, but a toxic fixation that consumed him. In this complex family structure, there was also Jonadab, David's nephew and Amnon's close friend, who played a crucial role in the tragedy that followed. Jonadab, described as a shrewd man, devised a plan that exploited the vulnerabilities within David's family. Instead of counseling Amnon to abandon his unholy desires, Jonadab suggested a deceptive scheme. Amnon should pretend to be ill and request that Tamar come to care for him. Neither David nor Tamar suspected any wrongdoing. After all, why would a brother want anything but kindness from his sister? This plan set the stage for a horrifying betrayal. When Tamar came to Amnon's room to care for him, she found herself caught in a trap. Amnon grabbed her and demanded that she lie with him. Tamar's response was desperate and wise. She tried to reason with him, pleading for him to reconsider, reminding him of the laws and the morality that govern their people. She even suggested that he speak to the king, anything to buy time. But Amnon, consumed by his obsession, refused to listen, and he overpowered her, violating her. What followed was even more heartbreaking. The love Amnon had claimed to feel for Tamar turned instantly into hatred. He ordered her to leave, adding insult to injury and publicly humiliating her. Tamar, devastated, tore her ornate robe and put ashes on her head, a public display of her grief and loss. She went to live with her brother Absalom, who took her in, but her life was forever changed. She lived in isolation, her hopes and dreams destroyed. When David heard what had happened, he was furious. But what did he do? Nothing. He remained silent. He took no action to bring justice to Tamar or to hold Amnon accountable. This silence was costly. It not only failed to provide Tamar with justice, but also sowed the seeds of vengeance in Absalom's heart. David's inaction was a failure both as a father and as a king. The consequences of his silence would soon ripple through his family, leading to even greater tragedy. Absalom, who loved his sister deeply, harbored a growing hatred for Amnon. For 2 years he plotted his revenge, waiting for the perfect moment. Eventually he orchestrated a feast and invited all of the king's sons, including Amnon. When Amnon was drunk, Absalom gave the signal, and his servants killed Amnon. The other sons fled in fear, and David was left to mourn not only the loss of his sons but also the brokenness of his family. Absalom fled and remained in exile for 3 years. David longed for his son, but the damage had been done. The cycle of silence, inaction, and violence had torn the family apart. The once great king, who had led his people with courage and wisdom, found himself unable to lead his own family. His silence in the face of Tamar's suffering had set off a chain of events that led to even more pain and loss. David's failure to act as a father and a leader holds important lessons for us today. The first mistake was his lack of vigilance. As a leader, David should have recognized the warning signs: Amnon's obsession, Jonadab's influence, and the unusual request for Tamar's care. The second mistake was his failure to take action. When Tamar was violated, David's fury was not enough. He needed to act to protect his daughter and to hold Amnon accountable. The third mistake was allowing his own past sins to paralyze him. Some scholars suggest that David felt unworthy of administering justice because of his own guilt over his affair with Bathsheba. But his failure to act only made matters worse. The consequences of David's silence were devastating. A daughter left in despair, a son murdered, another son exiled, and a family in ruins. The silence that David chose in the face of injustice became a weapon more destructive than any sword. It is a reminder to all of us that when we fail to protect those who are vulnerable, the consequences can be far-reaching and long-lasting. What can we learn from David's story? The first lesson is the importance of vigilance. As parents and leaders, we must be aware of what is happening in our families. We must pay attention to changes in behavior, unhealthy relationships, and the influence of others. The second lesson is the need to act when something is wrong. Silence in the face of injustice is complicity. We must take steps to protect those who are vulnerable, even when it is difficult. The third lesson is the importance of breaking the cycle of violence. When wrongs are not addressed, they can lead to even greater harm. We must strive for justice, forgiveness, and healing. David's story is not just an ancient tale. It is a powerful reminder of the responsibilities we carry as parents and leaders. Our actions or lack thereof have consequences. We must choose to break the silence, to speak out against injustice, and to protect those who need us. Only then can we hope to create families that are safe, loving, and whole. The true price of silence is too high. It costs us our peace, our loved ones, and our future. Let us choose instead to be vigilant, to act, and to protect. Let us learn from David's mistakes so that we do not repeat them. And let us remember that sometimes the first step toward healing and restoration is simply to break the silence. Thank you so much for watching. We hope this video touched your heart and left you with something meaningful to reflect on. If you found value in it, please consider sharing it with others who might also benefit from its message. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us continue to create impactful content. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Until next time, take care and spread positivity.